It's organized in partnership with IEEE Kenya Section and Profession and a team in IEEE Moi University doing a project on a smart kibada. Those who are not from Kenya, a smart kibada is kibada ama kiosk is a traditional point, a little spot. So we tend to improve on that. So project management is a major aspect of this project, which has still taken us time. And we will be having this technical training on this from one of the best experts in project management. Will really be helpful to us and maybe to others also, because project management is very vital. So in the call, I guess I would like to recognize the Benji Muriogi, who is our the IEEE Kenya Young Professions. Then maybe we can invite the speaker to give us the training. So the Benji, maybe you can say a word, maybe just start.
Thank you very much, Chris, and the entire team. And I'll take this opportunity to invite our speaker, Hilary Mutuma, a person whom I have known for, let's say, almost 12 years now. So that's quite a lot of time. We have done quite a lot of stuff together, both outside the scope of IEEE, among other areas. And I like to put this to our attention. The reason as to why we are having this call is courtesy of the funding that Team Smart Kiosk received. And in most cases, when maybe we receive hack funding or site funding, we end up starting the project, or rather running the project with engineers. And in most cases, you realize there are some basic things that especially students may not really end up grasping. And that's why I thought as some kind of a lead into this project, it's always important to be bringing professionals amongst this group so that they can talk about the project, and they can also bring in some more and better ideas as the team progresses with this project. So that is how this will be going on. I'll try, and we will try our best at least to have presenters at least once after every week. And if it's not possible, we can do maybe once after every 2 weeks. We will range from project management to product development to very technical kind of discussions, to even more simpler things and softer things like leadership and team building, among other things. The whole idea here is within these 6 months that this team will be building this project, after they finish up with this project, they should be in a position to be given another project and handle on their own, because they will have learned a lot from the whole entire team here. So that's how Hilary is coming in, and we are really privileged to have project management as our first kind of a talk. So just maybe to mention a few about Hilary. So Hilary is a graduate of University of Eldoret, which is one of a subsidiary of Moi University. I think those who know how Moi has grown, they know Moi. They know most of the technical schools, especially engineering and physical sciences, were all from the school, from the University of Eldoret. So that's where Hilary comes from. And apart from that, the reason as to why he's here to talk about project management in community engineering is because he has extensive experience dealing with community engineering projects, especially in the line of energy and livelihood. So maybe I thought this is the right person to talk to us in terms of managing such kind of project, because he has handled project engineering project to the community level, and in so many ways this project is trying to address such kind of stuff, and it's fully focused in the community. So welcome, Hillary, and I'm looking forward for us having a very fruitful discussion. And as he shares, I think Chris, you will be there to regulate questions, and let's get all of us excited and all of us learning, because I know maybe for those ones who are in fifth year or fourth year, that's where you will do your engineering management course. And trust you me, if you start doing these things by first year or second year, by the time you are there, you will have learned a lot, not only in the paper format, but also experience-wise. So welcome, Hillary.
Uh, Good evening, everyone. My name is Hillary. I'm really excited to be sharing with you a couple of knowledges that I have in the project management section. I'm purely a project management profession, having managed kind of some of the projects in like energy and livelihoods, and I majored specifically in community and in the area of conservation. So I think this is something that is very close to heart because it's something I'm very passionate about. I am very familiar or very excited to share with you most of the things that I have learned over the years. So, couple of the disclaimers is to tell you that doing projects manual, what you learn and what you meet down to the field, they're two different things. A couple of things that you come to change with your mind. So with no much further ado, I'd just like to jump right in, and I'd like to make this a very interactive session. So in between, we shall be having, some 3 to 5 minutes breakouts, and ask yourself a couple of questions. Maybe you can also drop something that you feel that you want to be specified or clarified. But in respect of time, we are going to be very quick and very fast in those time sessions. So again today, so we are going to be tackling about project management in community engineering related projects. So what I can tell you is that in whichever industry that you are in, doesn't matter whether it's in IT, whether it's in engineering, whether it's business, the project methodology is always the same. You'll never find a different methodology than the other one. What changes is the environment that you're working in. And different projects come also with different risks. And it's very different. Each project is very different. It's just like human beings. For example, if you have your boyfriend and your girlfriend, you find it very they are not always the same. Each person comes with his or her own characteristics, flaws, and also, the good and the bad. So it's also the same with the project management. And in the aspect of community development section, is that what I'd say is, most of the community development projects, you're dealing with people, and you have to be very cautious with the environment that you're working in to ensure that you have success in that particular project that you're working in. The main thing is to understand, first of all, so in the first activity, we're going to be illustrating what is a project and what project management is, and see if
Excuse me, Hillary.
yes, please.
Is it possible you put them on slide mode so that
Oh,
we
okay,
can
okay.
we can view them on full screen?
Let me try it out. Okay. So there are a couple of everyone can see it, please.
Yeah. Everything is now on slide mode.
Okay, okay, okay. I'll just kind of put some of my. Okay. How about that? Is that okay? I have a couple of notes which are on the side, so please confirm if you can see.
Yeah. I guess from my side, it's okay.
Is
But
it visible to everyone?
maybe those using phones, they can
How
see
about that?
because I'm
Is that okay?
It's okay.
Okay, okay. So the first question we're gonna to, or maybe I can just pop a question, is to ask maybe the members, uh, what is the most important thing that you think is very, or resource that you think is very crucial for the project management? Is it the budget? Is it the planning? Is it the people? Is it the money that you have? Or what is it? Anyone who can pick it up, please? What do you think is the most important?
I guess from my knowledge so far, this is Chris.
Mhm.
From my knowledge so far, I come to appreciate the aspect of planning in every project. Yeah.
Sorry?
Planning is very vital in any project.
Okay, okay. Someone else?
And me too. For me, I think time is the most important.
Yeah, yeah, please. Anyone else? So we have planning, we have time. What else? Uh, both of you are right. It's correct. Yes,
Uh,
time is very. Someone else? Anyone that we're locking out?
yeah, I think having a team to implement the project is also very important.
A team, yeah. Uh, so in the end of the session, I think everything will be very clear. All these are very important and very crucial. Some would argue time is very important. Some would argue the people that you're working with are very important. And some would argue as well planning is of essence. All of them are true. There's no, everyone said what is necessary or what is correct rather. So what you say is a project is mostly as described in the project management institute, PMI, is that we say the project is any temporary endeavor which has a definite and an end, a definite beginning and a definite end. So clearly it must be used to create a unique service or a product. So when you're coming in the product, it's just like a business. It's very different. So a project is here to create something that is very unique, something that is different, identifying those gaps that have been there. And you'll find that any project that you initiate uh, is coming in to solve a specific problem that you have identified. Either you've been, even if it is a replication of another project, it's always different. It will have different challenges and different environments. So again, you shall be able to look as well how that comes up and why it is always. Some of the characteristics here that you find has a definite start and end. So that means it is temporary in nature and has a beginning and end. And think for the person who said the aspect of time, it means that it just works on a closed end. It was always works in a bracket. So at one point in time, you'll have to end that project and call it a project for it to be called a project. It is not always a business as usual, so it's very different with the business. The project is not like operations. So to keep the organization, running and functioning as well. So while the purpose of the project mainly is to answer very specific questions or specific answers, to give definite answers. So it has to meet its goals and have a conclusion to them. So then it has boundaries, what we call the constraints, and we'll be able to look at them in depth as well. So that is time, scope, and cost, or rather the budgets. So these three are the ones that ensure that we have what we call to ensure the quality of the project is maintained. And it's always a project creates a very unique product or solves a unique problem. For example, I went through with Kedenji and he was brainstorming the on the smart kiosk project that you're having. So initially, this project is coming in to solve a problem that is in the market. So that means the the ones who came up with the concept identified a specific problem that was in the market and is coming to solve that specific problem. So it means it has a beginning and also has an end. And in between, you have to manage all the processes to ensure that it's a success, right? So that means it creates something unique. I'll also be able to give a couple of examples, for example, in something unique. Give an example with the motor vehicles that are in, or a Ford company, for example. Ford company. Ford company is in the business of manufacturing and producing cars, automobiles. And over the years, we've seen different models coming in and coming out. So initially, the Ford is an organization and it's a business by itself. Yeah. So the business comes also has to meet its objectives, but in the end, they have to create specific products or different products for the market. So we have the sedans, for example, and we have the SUVs. Over the years, each and every year, we see them coming up with a different car model. Yeah. Or even a BMW, you have the S class and you have the C class and you have the SUVs, all of them. That car, when they are making it, they call it or term it as a project because an SUV is coming in to solve a specific niche in the market. So there's a need of people who are very endowed or they find it fancy when they're using the sedans or using the SUVs. If it's a bus, for example, the Mercedes company produces the buses as well. So it comes to solve a specific problem that is in the market. So you have people who also would love comfort, and they have cars which are made for comfort. So those cars are the ones that come in as projects. And once that project is done, they send it to the market. Now they release the product to the market. So you see now, so you get to understand. So I hope everyone is understanding the characteristics we're talking about. It is not business as usual. It has a beginning and end, and it creates a very unique product. Then so projects are completed when the project goals are achieved, and it's determined the project that is no longer viable. So once that is done, it is done. So we could even answer now, move to asking ourselves for this project management. Again, we're going to refer to the book of knowledge, that is the project management book of knowledge. So it defines project management as the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques applied to the project activities. And in order to meet these project requirements, the project works as a process. So there is a planning process, there is the action process, there is the executive process, and the closure of business. And also in between, you have to measure the progress and the performance of the project. We shall be looking at that also in extensive, and we shall be, disseminating what is project management. Okay, so we have a picture here that shows what we term as project management. So we see there is communication, there is teamwork, there is analysis, there is budget planning, and all that. Everything that you see there is what comprises on it, or is the makes projects management. Okay, so this pictorial here is everything that you're going to encounter when you're doing projects or you're managing the projects in wherever you are. So again, I would want to zoom this because I'll be using it quite a lot in explaining some things. Can everyone see this picture? Just confirm, please.
We can see the picture, but cannot see what is written in the picture. Maybe you can use the zoom. Yes.
So maybe try and zoom in a little.
Yes,
How about now?
it's clear now.
Okay, okay. So this is what we normally use. It's a matrix of the project management process groups. So in one area you have the knowledge areas or the aspects that you will be dealing with. For example, on this side you have the project integration. Or just to define a little bit is that project management has 10 knowledge areas that you work with. And as a project manager, you have to understand and interpret all these knowledge areas, because all these knowledge areas are the ones that you're going to be applying in the in all the processes that are there on the life cycle of the project. So you have the integration, the project scope, schedule, you have the project costs, you have the quality management, project resource management, project communication, project resource management, moves up to project procurement and project stakeholders. On the other side, you have now the processes or the life cycle of the project management group. So you have the initiation process group, you have the planning process group, you have the executing parts, the monitoring and evaluation part, controlling part, sorry, and you have the closing process. All these processes, they work in different times, and you have to integrate or apply a certain knowledge area. For example, when you start in the initiating stage, you have to develop the project charter and again identify the stakeholders. On the planning process, this is now the longest part, and the most important part in a project life cycle. You have to spend a lot of time you have to put a lot of time planning than in executing and closing and monitoring. The reason being is because 90% of the time, if you don't have a proper plan, you're bound to fail and you won't be able to execute those processes or activities that you'll be setting effectively. Because in this process, you have to understand you're putting into context or into perspective everything, that all the knowledge areas that you have. For example, if it is resources that you want to, if you think about resources, you'll be working maybe the vendors, maybe the people that you want, the human resource parts. If it's communication, you have to come with a communication plan or the channels that you're going to use. If it's the quality, you have to plan and plan on how quality will be maintained and managed and how you'll be able to control quality. The same happens to the cost, that is the budget now. You'll be able to understand what is needed, put up the estimates, and determine what the actual budget is that you're going to use. Yeah. And in the process, what you're going to see is that you're not going to use the budgets maybe in the executing part. Maybe you have only purchased, but you need to keep it under control. How do you see that you are using a lot, you're above the expenditure or below the expenditure? How do you know you're above budget or below? How do you know whatever you quoted as the market price has changed? Things like that. On the schedule part, you need to break down all your activities into tasks that are able to be manageable. Yeah, I will be able to see that as well. I'll have a pictorial of it and be able to understand how the context goes. So it's not just going to move on. So this is the project constraints. We have the time and the scope. All these work together. You can leave one and leave the other and each other. And if time is not enough, it's going to affect the cost and the scope. Maybe you would ask why, how, or how. Yeah. So the answer is, for example, you have a scope where you have definite, clear defined goals or deliverables you're supposed to meet, and you do not have sufficient time to meet these deliverables. So the cost will be affected either if the time exceeds or goes less, you're going to either meet less deliverables or not meet the deliverables, or meet the deliverables but still go over budget. So all these are tied together. The time as well, the cost as well. If the budget or the cost that you estimated is not enough, it's going to affect your time and it's going to affect the scope, your deliverables. So I hope you understand now how all these work together. So each other cannot work. So all these three cannot work without each other. So these were married. We call it you'd hear someone call it the golden triangle, or the constraint matrix. So this is the scope. The scope defines specific goals, deliverables, features, and functions. And in addition to the task required to complete the project. Project management mainly focuses on how we are going to get there, that is the end, or perhaps more accurately, if not accurate, and also explains on what steps you are going to take to get there. So this is very important because you have to understand and get clear documentations of the full project scope and from the beginning to the end. Okay. We have the cost constraints. How this works is because it is a responsibility of the project manager to set clear expectations with the stakeholders and also control the scope and in all the processes, and establish some kind of transparency to all the stakeholders. Also in the cost, we do something that's called a tracking of the budgets, or the progress on how things are moving, or the actions, how are we moving. So the cost of the project, or would rather call it the project budget, comprises of all the financial resources needed to complete the project in time, and it's normally predetermined by the scope. Okay, so now see how this is tied, and it keeps in mind the cost does not mean money, or does not just mean money or materials. It encompasses of the cost of labor, vendors, quality control, and all other factors. So you can now start you can tie that up to the matrix that I will show you now. And the project cost management process is the process whereby you have to do estimations on the budgeting, controlling the cost throughout the project cycle, with an objective of keeping all the expenditure within the approved budget. Okay. So again here, the project manager will be very, 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 very involved in ensuring that you're managing all these costs at a go, and ensuring that everything is moving smoothly. You have the time management constraints, and in time management, it refers to the project schedules for the completion, including the deadline of each phase of the project. So you have to see as well that you're meeting the dates in you're meeting the deliverables in the agreed time. So when you're making your work, when you're tracking your activities, maybe on Gantt charts, for example, or in the work breakdown structure, or the activity task that you're using. And if you're using a software, for example, you'll be able to track all those events and all your deliverables, and the time frames that were given to complete that task. The reason you have to put time on essence is because if time is not met, if you decided to what do you mean? If you are creating, for example, a software, maybe I should have explained this before we moved. For example, you're creating a software and you have decided maybe in a time frame of 2 weeks time, in a sprint of 2 weeks, you're going to be creating a backend whereby customers can pay, for example, using their phones. Okay, you have to meet that deliverable within that time frame. If it is not met in that time frame, yeah, it has to be pushed to another time. That is different. That's a different approach of project management. Yeah, I'll be explaining that in a few. And one of the most important stakeholder to put in consideration, okay, is all sorry all the stakeholders must be put into consideration. So project time, how long it will take to deliver, is very vital to measure the success of the project. So your task is to estimate the project time as accurate as possible, which requires to blend of research and experience. Okay. Before we look at this picture here, I'd like to explain two methodologies that we use in project management. So project management has different methodologies depending on what industry you're doing. For example, for those of us who will be interested in moving, for example, in software engineering or creation of applications, they use a different methodology than the ones in community, for example, development aspect. So in community development part, we normally use something we call the traditional project management or the waterfall project methodology. And for those who will be using in the IT sector, you hear them talking about agile project management. It's something similar to what Safaricom is using right now. They have transitioned to agile project management. This is because agile project management is more of customer oriented there. So for them, they are more enclosed or aligned to what the customer needs or to give the best for the customer. And for many times when people are using agile project management, you can say like project management is more of a interactive approach that to deliver a project throughout the life cycle. And they also uses a different life cycle, which maybe if you have a pen, I can just mention a few. So the project life cycle of, for example, software development part, for them they normally do a requirement part whereby they meet and do the requirements of what is needed. Then they do a plan. They go then to the design phase. They design now the application that is done by the development team. Then it will be done also, they sort of build the application of the software and then put it into test, that is on quality section. Then move it to release part where now it's released maybe to the customer to test it and see if it's working. And then the last part is now to do a tracking and monitoring of the software that they have implemented. And you'll find them working in a methodology that is called that is normally time frame. Yeah, they call it sprints. It normally works in sprints, and then the cycle restarts again. So for a person who is using agile project management and for the aspect of for example, Safaricom, is either you do not have an actual budget of the project that you're going to implement, or you are not so sure on what to expect or what the customer expects. This is because for example, in software, for those who are in software, you agree with me, things change every time, and a customer or a client will put specifications in along the way and maybe say, no, this is not working, and you have to go back again and redo. So if you do not have a very flexible methodology, you're not going to deliver a very nice product. And so this happens when you're not so sure of what expectation or the end product is. Just to give a few, and it has also a different kind of principles and they call agile principles of agile project management. So in the waterfall part is which provides very simple framework that normally involves planning of projects that are very sequential in order. That is what now the community set parts we normally use, or any other project that involves has to get the funding first. From the funding, then you have to plan then you need to come also with a concept idea. From the concept idea, come to the initiation plan, initial phase, then plan, then execute, then control. It's very sequential. And always the team cannot move to another task if they have not completed the first task. But in agile project management, that's quite different. They would even start from the end, I mean, to the front. So different development teams or DevOps teams or set of engineers, they'll be tasked to build to do specific things, come up with, maybe someone will be working on the customer section, maybe another one will be working on the web design, another one will be working on the payments parts, those kind of things. I hope we now understand how those two methodologies work. So again, just a few illustrations, just so this picture is very interesting. A P in project management, as Cornelius Fincher defines, it's more of people management. I don't know how that is true, but we're going to find out anyway. So, defining the success of a project. So, first of all, the project has to be completed in time. It has to be completed within the budget. It has to be completed within a defined scope. And the project also has to be completed with the set quality standards that are being put in place, and the performance measures. And lastly, the project has to satisfy all the key stakeholders, we shall be also be I'll be taking you also how we define stakeholders, or how we find stakeholders. Who is a project manager? So there are two ways you can become a project manager. Number one, a project manager is someone who this is a traditional project manager, someone who has intentionally embarked on a project management career and has a degree or qualification in that area of profession. So myself here, I'm a traditional project manager. A non-project manager, on the other hand, these are people who have never been set out to become project manager, but who find themselves managing projects anyway. In this case, I'll get a good scenario is Kedenji, for example. He has never done project management, but he's now managing a project and overseeing all the processes in place. So you might find yourself, so he's finding himself managing a project, but he has never learned about projects. He's now learning on the job. So that's how two ways that you can become a project manager. So these are the roles. I'll be very quick. So first, we identify and define the project scope, timelines, resources, and developing the budget. Secondly is to formalize the identified factors and putting forward the documents. Okay, those are the schedules and the charts. Again, you do a lot of monitoring, evaluating, and reporting the progress of the project to stakeholders. I guess Kedenji normally does a lot of reporting and informing the progress of the project, how it is, to relevant stakeholders, maybe the donors or his superiors, for example, and have to maintain the quality standards of the project. So his role also is to ensure that this project is implemented according to the quality standards, maybe by KEBS or IBS, for example, IEEE standards. Okay. Monitoring and managing the results as per the defined actuals. This is very interesting, because this is where we are saying you cannot work beyond more than the time frames, more than the defined time frames. Then the closing of the project and analyzing the results and communicating the same to the stakeholders. Lastly is to conduct risk assessment and risk analysis, managing the risk and developing mitigation plans. So back to the matrix, which was the explanation of the knowledge areas. I hope you saw a place where we call it's called project risk management. So that's also another knowledge areas. As of per the roles, you can now tell clearly a project manager is implementing all the knowledge areas that we saw earlier. So from resources, time, cost, that's the budget, the risk, the scope, everything, quality procurement, communication, and 80% or 90% time of the project manager, what he does is communicating, talking from the word go, from inception to conclusion. Okay, he's mingling with people, so he's normally working with everyone, either the suppliers, the vendors, the technical department, the communications department. He's and putting all those people working, those cross, what you call cross departmental kind of communication. So he's coming to all levels and ensuring all the processes are in place and all the deliverables are met in time. That is because the project depends on everyone's effort. The same case happens also to the community. So what are the tools of project management? Some of us will be doing, maybe I just mentioned a few and there are very many. I just picked a few, most of the ones that I use. We have the Gantt charts, we have the project evaluation review tool, what you call parts. We have the log frame matrix. This is very important, and you have the work breakdown structures. I'll be explaining the last two, work breakdown structure and the log frame matrix, how they work. These two are very important and they are very much implemented. Okay, someone to call them logical framework. You maybe have to code them in campus in our courses. And this is mostly a planning tool consisting of a matrix which puts an overview, or call it it sets a roadmap on how the project will be implemented and what is expected. So if you have, for example, a product or a project charter, this is now a breakdown of everything. So the impacts, the outputs, the impact, the outcome, outcome, the outputs, all the activities and the inputs that you need are all put in place, are put in one place. So it's a small picture, it's a small matrix that you use to put everything in place. So we're done with first section, and maybe you can reflect a little bit and see how that works, and if you are in line and understanding of what project management is. So the first activity maybe is we could ask ourselves what kind of life cycles does the project use? What are the steps? What are the tools used for tracking the process? And what is the stakeholders matrix and developer frame matrix? Maybe someone can tell us what he thinks about this next activity or session. Chris, do you want to tell us anything to do with project life cycle? Do you have an idea?
Yes, currently I've been going through a couple of YouTube videos trying to understand this concept. Maybe what I've got through is a project life cycle. Basically, the life cycle of the project after the beginning now, when you start the project to the end now, the planning, the development, the closing, the review, that makes the overall project life cycle. That is some understanding.
Anyone else who can tell us just things on what a life cycle or the tools of tracking, or maybe have used certain tool to track the project processes or the project's deliverables rather. Okay, just going to check, just jump right in and see what we are going to expect. So this is how the project lifecycle looks like, and this is the waterfall project methodology, project management methodology. So it's very sequential. So the initial stage, the planning process, the executing process, the monitoring control process, and the closing process. All these they work together. Okay. And we do here have now a definition of what the initial stage is. So stop. Okay. So the project initiation phase. So this is the first stage of the project management. So where you the formalizing of the project plan, the project charter, and the scope are defined. Okay. So this is normal. We can call it a project document, or this is where the life of that project is. This is what carries the project, and it determines the cost, the resources, the timeline, the budget, the budgeting for the project. And this phase has two main activities, and these two main activities are development of the project charter and the identification of the stakeholders. Okay, and what happens here, just to the project charter comprises of several things. It comprises even from it has a description of the project, the budget, the timelines, and it also goes to the extent whereby it identifies the stakeholders, or who will be players, the team itself, or which people are going to be needed. So that is captured in the aspect of the stakeholders. So the project charter and the stakeholders register, this is how it looks like. So it starts with the project statement, problem statement rather, then the business case, goal statement, the timeline, the scope, and the team members, those people who will be incorporating in that project. So this is more of a, maybe when you're doing a proposal, for example, yeah, proposal. You agree with me? You normally you will incorporate most of these. Maybe for example, I think what will differ mostly is the business case, or this will be given another term in a proposal. And the components of stakeholders register. This is it incorporates stakeholder identification, assessment of information, and the stakeholder classification. So all these are documents. So you need to understand first, the project has not begun. So this is where the idea is conceptualized. Okay. Yeah. And a business case normally is the document that is created to provide a solution or implement. So that's what I'm saying. It's going to be defined differently or given another different name. Maybe when you're writing a proposal, and the idea after it comes in. This is where ideas are brainstormed in a brainstorming session, kind of, and consisting of a team, client, and the project managers. So again, here you need to understand. Here is where all the minds are put in place to come up with a clear plan or clear project. This is our stakeholder matrix would look at. So if I go back a little bit, and there's a place where we say stakeholders identification. For example, I'm not so familiar with the project that you are implementing. One thing I'm so sure about is that the government is involved. You have involved the government. So government is a very key stakeholder. If it's not a government, is the political setup, yeah, per se, yeah, people in those political areas, and you have to involve also the people that you are, the community of you're going to implement that project. You're going also to be implement, which are the stakeholders. I think there is maybe you'll involve a team of technical engineers who are very vast in that kind of area, in maybe the project that you're working on. So all these stakeholders, you have to come to, and this happens when you're doing a brainstorming session, or maybe a meeting like this. You say, whom should we include in these? Who are key stakeholders? Who is going to be affected by this project? Who's going to have interest in this project? Yeah. And how you do that, then you start identifying their influence in your project. Yeah. There are those people who are very much interested, but they have less power, or there is nothing much they can do. For example, if you go to a community and you're putting up a borehole, for example, yes, there is a need of these people. The community members are very much interested with the water. The project is very interesting to them, and but there is nothing they can do because they do not have that much. Their set of influence is different. Yeah. If you go to a school, it's going very much to a school, for example, it's going to be very much interested. A dispensary, second, they will be very much interested. All these are stakeholders, yeah. The chief will be very much interested, but might have a lot of power. For example, lots of power. A politician, a good example is a politician. A politician will be very much interested in the project, or will be interested in the project, but with a different kind of interest. Maybe he has a lot of influence to push certain things, maybe press a few buttons, but his interest in that particular water project is very little. Maybe he's just there for political gains and get some political mileage and he's done. So that this is the reason why you come up with a stakeholders map. Who needs what? So number one is to identify stakeholders who have high power and low interest. For this, you keep them completely informed. Yeah? High power and low interest. These people are the ones, they only want to be informed. Yeah? A good example is a politician, yeah? or a chief. Hmm? And then come to the second part. I hope you're following me up. Who are the people who have regular minimum contact? Yeah? Identify stakeholders who have low power and low interest. Yeah, these ones require very regular or minimal contact. For example, you're putting a borehole or that kiosk you're putting in, maybe in a place like Kibera, but a company in Upper Hill, yeah, a company in Upper or an engineer in Upper Hill is will be very much interested in the idea, but there is nothing he can do about it, or very, very minimal contact. So you keep them informed. High power, low interest. You manage these most and thoroughly. Yeah. And so the people, and the last part is the stakeholders with low power and high interest. Now, this is the community. But also remember, yeah, depending on each project, as I said, a project is very unique in different environments, yeah, and come with different challenges. There's a community you would go and implement a project, and you find that community is very powerful, has a lot of power, or has a lot of influence. There is someone in that community that has a lot of influence. I'll give a scenario. If you go to let's put a community side up here. We have the wazes, the baraza kumi, the nyumba kumi kind of setup. And in that community, from community A and community B, in this community A, you want to put up a project. And these projects, you need to map out your stakeholders. Yeah. So there is the community or the households themselves, and you have also the leadership and the governance of that community. So you have to identify where they fit in your stakeholders matrix. And you have also maybe set of schools or maybe police camp as well. Yeah. You need also to factor in the county as well, the government. They're very influential in that aspect. And the government might be maybe the chief, maybe the governor, or even the area MP of that particular area. You have even scholars who might be very interested in the projects. They can do their research on it and everything. So you have to incorporate them in that stakeholders. So you start now the planning phase. So this is the second phase also. So it creates a detailed project management plan. And this plan includes tasks, resources required, timelines, cost to work schedules, and risk management plan. And in the planning phase, you prepare something called a work breakdown structure and identifying the risk and developing the mitigation plans. Yeah. So again, this is the risk. This is applying all the 10 knowledge areas of project management. So there is communication management plan, there is a risk management, there is a schedule plans, I can see, and there is also what you call budgets, there is a time management, there is a procurement action plan, and everything. All these, they work together, and any other relevant document that is needed to iron out the workflow and coordination of the involved parties. Yeah. So what happens in this plan? It determines, first of all, the planning phase determines what is to be done, yeah, and the requirements needed. So that is the resource management aspect of it, and the scope. Okay, then determines who is going. Sorry, just need to succeed. Sorry, determines who is going to be involved and responsible for what, and what the stakeholder and what is it, which is the project team. It also determines when the activities will be done. We're creating our works, creating schedule plans, requirement lists, including the tool and involving tools like critical path methods. This is shows the critical path method shows clearly determines, or it's a rather a process that determines the most complex tasks and activities, determine when or what is the earliest time they can be accomplished, or they can be finished. It also identifies the assumptions and the constraints. Yeah, the assumptions are the risk. What are you expecting ahead? What is, for example, if I can find a good example is you are building a road, yeah, but you're not so sure if you will get a challenge of communities being neglecting the project or rejecting the project, yeah, because of certain things. So those are the things that you'll be looking at. You're not so sure if ahead there is the weather will be able to affect your working timelines. How are you going to how are you going to mitigate that kind of risk? If it happens, what are you going to do? For example, you're not so sure if for example, we are going to an electioneering period. You're not so sure if this project you're starting next is going to be affected by the elections. Maybe there are going to be riots and the project has to be stopped. Maybe the campaigns will halt your timelines. You never know. And those are the things you put into place or perspective. Lastly, is determine how the project will be done. So now you come up with a specific plan or a roadmap of it. Yeah. So this is how a work breakdown structure looks like. Give it an example of construction of a house, and there is the main goal is to construct a house, but then you have the designing team. You need to design, the procure and construction, inspect and turn over. Then you have to break those down. The colored blue boxes. Those are the chunk of works that you're going to be breaking down. Okay. Now you need to do something like a permit, get a permit on drawing, permits, do the drawings and etc. Then the procurement, you need to purchase this thing. All these are teams working on different things. So for the designing part, you'll get maybe a team working on the permits and a team working on the drawings, and there's a team on the procurement team will be working on purchasing all these things. And these are different technical jobs. So the design team cannot do the procurement job, and they cannot come and do construction and do inspection. So now the team that you're working with, or this is where the resource management comes in. So you have to break down, disseminate everything, and know what is going to work on what and who's going to work on what and how you're going to achieve that. So what happens is we can say our work brings the major role as well for project manager in this particular section is to identify the strength and the weaknesses of his team, then assign those jobs according to the strength and the weaknesses. So this is something that you're going to be implementing. So this is how also a log frame looks like. It's not does not include the engineering part, but this is how now, for example, this is how now your project looks like this. Yeah. And maybe you will be asked, maybe you might ask yourself, maybe if a project has already begun and they hire a project manager, how am I going to know what the project needed or what was done? So you have the project charter that comprises everything that you need to understand of the project, and then you have now a log frame matrix. So this is a breakdown of the project charter. The main goal here, or what you call, rather, you call it an impact. For example, is 10% increase in the number of grades 5 and 6 in primary students to continue on with the this a little bit. Hope you can see it. So this is the impact. This is the main goal. Yeah. But how do we get there? Yeah. So this is the end result. But in this case, when you are building a log frame matrix, we never start with the goal. Okay? Understand this. When you're creating a logic framework or when you're planning, you do not start with the goal or the impact. You have the impact there, but you don't start from the top going down, going to the activity. You start with the activities, moving up. So if you can see my cursor here, you will start by identifying the activities that you need. So what will happen, you'll fill this row first. This is the if, and then you cross again. Then you have to cross again to the risk and assumption. Then you cross again to the implementation, to the goal of the impact. You might ask yourself why the goal there's no is not applicable. There's a no applicable risk and assumptions. This is because we do not expect any other risk after we have delivered now. Okay, so understanding is very different. So we have the process whereby you start from the top, from the conceptualization of it, coming down to planning, executing, and closure. But when you're creating a logic framework, this is now where you're understanding the deliverables, how will be met, or breaking it down into manageable processes or manageable tasks. So you start with the activities. What are the activities you'll be doing? What are you looking at? If there is any inputs, maybe if you want, if you hire 5 people, you need plumbers, you need books to do maybe capacity building, you need materials to conduct trainings, you will need what do you call, you'll need to procure a couple of cements, for example. If it's a construction, you need people to design. Those are the inputs. What are you putting into the project? What you need to do there, those activities. Then you move, what are the indicators? The indicators and the means of verification, these are the ones which are going to help you in tracking your project. For those of you who have been maybe done a few things about monitoring and evaluation, you'll understand the project indicators and the means of verifications. How would you verify that you conducted the training? What are the indicators? Maybe number of students coming for the training, or maybe number of technicians that you have trained. What are the means of verification? You'll put them there. Okay. What are the risks and assumptions that this training will not happen? What are we anticipating? Maybe 10 people will show up. Maybe due to the election period, that day they won't show up, or they go to the market. Yeah. So those assumptions are the ones how would you mitigate them? For them not attending, how would you mitigate that challenge? Maybe you would identify a specific day when they are very much free. I give an example. Where I work, we have a community on the north side of the conservancy that is normally pastoralists and the Samburus mainly, and the Maasais. So it's very challenging when I'm in my log frame matrix. There's a section where I have maybe capacity building and training them about renewable energy, or conducting training about solar panels. Then I have an assumption whereby they will not attend. So how do I mitigate that? In my risk management plan, I have to put a section where I identify viable days when they are available. Okay. For example, you cannot conduct a training on a Monday. That is because on a Monday, that is when they go on the markets. When you if it's a project, for example, you cannot implement the project on a Sunday. On a Sunday is because many people, maybe in that community you're working in, that's when people, they are in that environment, that's when people go to church. Or on a Saturday, you cannot work on a Saturday. Yeah. If you're implementing a project, for example, on the Middle East, you will not, for them on a Friday is a rest day. So that's when the day they go to the mosque and everything. People in the Middle East will tell you on a Friday we don't work. So those are kind of the things that as a project you might be able to understand. Yeah? You have to get to grasp everything that is happening in your environment. The third section is project execution. In this particular section, this is a stage where the project team is ready to launch and administer the project. So remember, everything that you had planned from resources, from stakeholders, from up to communication, what are the channels that you're going to use, how are you going to monitor progress, everything. Now it's ready. And all I tell you is, we can back a little bit, is to say project planning phase. You'd rather spend time here, like it consumes like 60 to 70% of the time that of your project. Sometimes it might go even to 80% because you need to keep the plans, actual and very specific. Better spend time planning than you come to find challenges or blockers along the way, or bottlenecks. So in this stage, tasks are delegated and resumed so to keep track of the project and efficiency to manage the same. So the project manager's role in this section, first of all, is to allocate the resources and ensuring the deliverables are met in time, timely. Okay. Then there is a continuous communication with the team. Assign all the tasks to the team members on a daily basis, and conduct daily meetings. I don't know if the Jimuriongi does this, and tell us in a few, and creating a status report based on daily meetings and the progress of the project. So now I guess we can agree we are in a place maybe you guys are in at project execution. So the project manager in that project that you are implementing, at least daily at least daily, not even daily. If it's not daily, at least weekly, conduct weekly meetings to ensure your team is able to understand where the project is in a particular, what are the deliverables that have been met, and what is expected for us in the next coming phase. What happens is, these meetings do not take 15 or 20 minutes. These are called stand-up meetings. Yeah, this is a phrase that is normally used by software developers, the Scrum managers. They do every day. They do a stand-up meeting that takes maximum 15 minutes. And in these meetings, what happens is they talk about what they did yesterday, what they are going to do that day, and what are the blockers. You can borrow the same in these other methodology. So then creating status reports. The status reports are very important. So they can be weekly, can be daily, or they can be monthly, and even quarterly. Yeah. So you have to indicate. And what will help you to do the status reports is things like Gantt charts, the work plan that we have already seen. It will be able to show where the project is at that point. The Gantt chart indicates the percentage even of the time. If your Gantt chart is in your computer, if it's computerized, you can track it even in percentage completion of the project or implementation part. So it's very important. And the continuous communication is very important as well. Yeah. So continue talking to the people, tell them where they are. The team also, you need to create an avenue whereby they can communicate and talk to you freely as a project manager. Okay. Give them a room whereby their ideas also can be harbored, or they can be habited. So if they feel tomorrow is going to, maybe they feel there's a challenge ahead, give them a room to bring it out and talk about it and brainstorm what are the next steps that you're gonna take. So here, so what is very important is to understand to test your leadership skills. You have the monitoring and controlling phase. Yeah. So in this phase, what happens is at this stage, evaluate the performance of the project that is being undertaken. Okay. So what you'll be testing is what you call the project the baseline, and the baseline that I'm talking about is the time, the cost or the budget, and the scope. Those are that is what we call the baseline. So the set goals and deliverables that you put in those areas, are they met? So in this process, you're going to track the progress, compare the progress plan and the status reports with the project plan. So three things. So where you are at, yeah, see where you're going and see where you have come from. Have you met the deliverables according to your plan? What percentage of implementation or execution of that project? Where are you at that point? That shows you if you're either on time, on budget, and within the scope of your project. For any deviation of the project from the project, it will tell you, then reduce those deviations. This is where risk mitigation comes in. Yeah. And do a redefine of the key performance indicators. Then update your plan for any changes you wish to meet within the deadlines. Then monitor the budget utilization and monitor the quality of the project. So QA checklist and the team time tracking are very important. And as you execute the project, keep track of all the changes that are going to happen. So change management is going to happen. So any changes that happen, how do you conduct those changes? And how do you communicate that change to your people? Because people take changes differently because you're working with the team. And something that you need to understand, this phase of monitoring and controlling phase, it is not just a phase. This is monitoring is a continuous process. Okay, it's a continuous process from the initiation phase, right from the time you started doing the project charters until you close the project. You're continuously doing monitoring. You're monitoring everything, how things moving, and documenting all those findings that you find in all those phases. Yeah, the reason being, at closure you'll be able to do what you call lessons learned document. Put those and it's not for the sake of the team as well to grow. Check that out in a few. So when you're doing monitoring and controlling, this is where you can measure where the efforts and your efforts and the resources go through the project cycle, and you can cross-check that. Some of the tools that you can use here, number one, tools you can use here are the Gantt charts, and if you're using a software like Jira would help you, and Asana. And okay, so what are the tracking tools that you can use? I'll be very quick on this one. I've mentioned Trello, for those who have used Trello, Gantt chart, critical path method, Jira, Asana, and even dashboard, or even a Kanban boards. So Kanban, you will find them in Jira. So this is a software, you'll find them here. It has incorporation. Also in Trello, you'll find Kanbans. So for those who will be doing software development thing, they'll be able to see that. Then the last phase is the closures phase. So in this phase, this is where now you assess if the project deliverables are met, and now you surrender the project to the beneficiaries of that project. And then you forward those documents to the relevant stakeholders, release the resources. Those are the people, the team that you're working. If it's a team, it's now time to release them and communicate the closure. This is very important. Remember to communicate the closure to the project stakeholders, okay? and do what we call a project closure document. Okay, and in this document there are certain number of things that you have to document. The project team might also want to conduct what we call a project retrospective activity. Yeah, so retrospective activities where now it's a reflection phase where you reflected what was done, what did you learn, and what needs to be improved in the next project or project that you're conducting. This way you can document the lessons learned and ensure improvement in your next management phase. Okay, so the closure of the project also closure will differ depending on the situations. Okay, releasing the deliverables also on or these deliverables to sectors also be tied up to what is the situation, and communicate this closure to the stakeholders, including the community. Then you have to sign off the project documents and release these team members and documenting the lessons learned, everything, certification of everything. Okay, so that we have finished with the project life cycle. I hope you're together. Yeah? Are we together?
Yes, we are, but I would love to ask the question. I don't know if it's the best time.
Please, can you hold that? Hold that. Just reserve like 10 minutes or so for questions also. So just this is the last part of it, or the activity part. Or it is Chris, is it the question tied to the process that we just completed?
No, I will ask just.
Okay. So in this space, we're going to maybe ask what are the skills needed for the project manager, and what are the principles of project management. And again, what I said is, and what should we consider in project? Why should we consider project management? As I said, the project management processes are all the same, and even the principles to be implemented or the principles you're going to use are all the same. So you find like you borrow some of them here and there. So number one is create clear goals and concise goals and concise project goals, and manage your risk. Establish a project performance baseline. Then establish and maintain a healthy communication, and clearly define a team's responsibilities. I'll emphasize on this because there's something that we normally use that is called a Raki, or maybe someone else will say Rasi. For the creating clear goals and concise project goals, we normally use something called SMART. So set your goals to be very specific, measurable, accountable, or very accurate, and then very realistic, and need to be very timely. And the next one is risk management. You need to come up with and know the process of risk management, starting from identifying, assessing, or evaluating the risk. Analyze the risk, prioritize the risk, then treat the risk, and lastly you monitor or implement the risk. You implement now the risk assumptions that you came with, all mitigation measures. On the performance baselines, I guess I explained these on the other parts. This is where you test you measure, you assess it against the scope, time, and the budget. Establish early communication. This will have come with what communication are putting across. Defining the teams now. We use something that is called racking. So racking is who's going to be responsible for what task. Accountability, who's going to be accountable, delegate what task. Then who's going to be consulted when that task is complete or there is an effect of it, and ensure that who will keep everyone in the loop about the project progress. Yeah, so it's very important. Why should we consider project management? This is a very good question that you, as scholars, that we would ask ourselves. Number one, I'll be very quick with these ones because it sounds like we'll be repeating what you've been saying before. First you say realistic project planning. So you have to have very realistic goals. We've seen that in the project principles. Clear focus on the objectives keeps everyone in check and the organization as a whole and the project team. And clear focus can lead to, to scope creep or missed deadline overspending, such things. Proper management of the processes. Yes, you have to manage these processes very, very well when you consider project management. In fact, 60% of survey that was conducted indicates that organizations that use project management normally have better chances of project success than those ones who have not adopted project management. So number one, the assigned task milestone and deadlines will be met in time. And the project managers where the direct team will be able to work efficiently to ensure this is done. And you have the good quality control. Again, there's good monitoring and evaluation. So monitoring is continuous, evaluation is timely, and it's conducted on periodic times. Yeah, so you conduct it maybe quarterly, yearly, or even monthly, depending on how. But you need to create a space whereby you have to see the impacts. Then there is a reduced cost in project management. It will help you to improve on efficiency, mitigating risks, and optimizing resources. The last one is it ensures that your project is strategically aligned with the organization strategy, and therefore it's important to ensure that all you apply all it in all initiatives in the project. So again, this is one of maybe some you will hear people saying how our project or question that will arise maybe in a in the public domain. Someone asking how your projects aligned to your organization goals or strategic plans, so that things. So managing and running a successful community project. Number one, the project principles. Let me mention this. This is how we run them. Yeah. So we tend to reflect on three things: planning, partnership, and learning. Okay. So we partner up a community and we learn within the process. We get started, then you set your directions as well on so what activities are you going to be working on and what implementations are you going to be uh, implementing. So you work well as a group. So it's important you remember that working two is better than one, and it takes two to tangle or to make work done. Second one is to monitor and evaluate the progress. So develop ways to check your progress, monitoring. There's monitoring and assess the progress on regular basis. That's now the evaluation. Okay, assess the progress on regular basis. It can be now quarterly or yearly or half yearly, depending on how you want to evaluate your deliverables or outcomes rather. The last one is to assess the impact of the project. So our project should take into account the impact of the proposed work. Okay, so check it out all the maybe for example for this one I picked in the check the natural cultural and cultural maybe background of that area and the history, maybe conservation values, for example. Pick these in my work that I do. And what are the skills and the expertise that are needed on to have work done by the project manager. So something that you might have picked up is that there is a continuous maybe repetition of a lot of words. For example, things like environment, communication, leadership, leadership, and risk management, all those things, and clear goals. So I guess now you're trying to, you have a picture of what are things that are needed in a project. So now in the area of expertise, number one is to apply the knowledge and standards and regulations. I'll be explaining that in a few. Understanding the project management environment, okay? Which environment, the environment that you're implementing the project. The third one is manage the knowledge and skills that you have, and then you have now the interpersonal skills. So in this particular area, for example, you say some projects require specific skills and certain applications. A project in engineering and a project in, for example, information technology, they work in two different environments. And there's a set of standards or disciplines and regulations that are needed in that particular area of work. For example, if for example is in engineering, maybe civil engineering, um, construction of roads, and maybe you electrical engineers, there are certain things that needs to be, you have a discipline of things that you do, regulations, and maybe those projects need have specific needs, yeah. And even as much as the industry might maybe relating to maybe related, but the industry is also different. For example, the pharmaceutical, the financials, the technology, where you have software development and engineering examples, and maybe the management side of it, yeah. All these industry on have, what we agree on is that we can agree on is that there are always projects happening in different industries, and those industries operate differently. I'm in the conservation industry, and you're in the engineering. What happens in the conservation world is not what happens in the engineering world. So you have to know the environment that you're working in so that you can be able to know what knowledge to apply and regulation policies to apply. Understanding your project management environment is very crucial. I'll put this in the context of community now. If you work in a community, for example, in the Maasai area, and implementing also, and the person implementing that project in Kiambu, for example, yeah. So in Kiambu, these are the Bantus and the north side, the Maasais. In Kenya, the Maasais are very, it's led their governance basis or their family structure is normally patriarchal, yeah. And what happens is that the men are the voice of the family, and the men are the voice of the village or the entire society or entire community. So when you're implementing a project in that particular area, well, there's a lot of community engagement and participation in their end, and rather than, the contrary to what you will face in this, as much the participation or community engagement in this area, you'll find it to be very minimal than the one on the north. Okay, there's that kunakuwa tension per se. There's that tension. If you are going to implement a project there in the Maasai region, you have to pass first to the elders. If you're going to conduct a meeting, you have to pass first to the elders. Even the chief himself has to be able, but he's not that much put into consideration per se. But the wazes normally say and give you a go ahead maybe to do that particular project. In that setup, there's some discussions you can also not have in the setup of maybe committees in the Maasai. I'm not giving you an example in the locality that I implement my projects. So there's some discussions that you cannot have with them. For example, things to do with the FGM, sorry to mention these, but those are very tricky or gray areas that you need to balance your conversations. So a project in that particular, there's some projects that will do well and there are projects that will literally fail. And like telling them to reduce the number of cows they have, it will never work. When you come in a project whereby they have to mitigate to reduce the number of cows for certain reasons so that they can improve their livelihoods, that's never going to work. Unlike a setup in Kiambu area, yes, a person would rather have very few cows, but his lifestyle is good, yeah. So factors you need to understand within this project, you think of cultural and social environment, people, demographics, and education, and even the political environment of it. Management and knowledge skills, the ability of to plan the project, to execute the project, properly, and of course to control the project and bring successful conclusions. So this, you have to ensure you have the ability to manage and reward risk and rewards, finances, accounting activities, human resource issues, all those things that we had talked earlier. And the interpersonal skills, this is now you test your soft skills, communication, leadership. Ensure that this is why you motivate your team towards the vision and the mission of the project. And communication, ensure that you are able to communicate the transformational change that you want to implement in that particular project. And part of the influence, you need to establish your influence clearly. For example, if it's an organization, there are certain areas that you need to put influence and get things done. Yeah, you need to get some of things done, and it's getting lost. So you're gonna have to influence some things in the procurement section to get things purchased faster, or maybe a supplier or a vendor. Motivation, need to motivate your team continuously and to keep them in check so that they have to feel motivated to achieve the goals. And if it's either in reward perspective or appreciating them, or there are various ways that you could motivate even a team member or your team members. Maybe you could tell recognizing them in a meeting. That's a very good way of motivating people. And also to be able to negotiate very many contracts, or even negotiate, for example, if it's contracts, and negotiate with your suppliers, negotiate with your team as well. If you have a disagreement, have good problem solving skills as well. This is very crucial. You're anticipating things, be in a position whereby you can anticipate or forecast problems and solve them before even they happen. Okay. So the seems like we have come. I think these are the most crucial ones, and the last one is maybe tell you ways that you can acquire certifications in project management. And number one is get a PMI certification, is a project management charter certification. You can do also a degree in project management or even a diploma certification in it. There is another one called associates in project management, and the other one is agile project management. There are various number of project management certification. If you're in IT section, you would also do something to do with Scrum certification, maybe to be a Scrum manager and all that. All of them can be very helpful. I think I've come to the end of my presentation, and the last one is to say, Henry Ford said, failure is simply an opportunity to begin again. And this time is more, you started to more intelligently. Yeah. So with the lessons learned that you'll be able to have acquired after you have closed your project, this is now where you come and implement them better and even better. So never fear to fail in a project. Never fear to challenge some things in projects. So because once you fail is the only way you are able to learn. Yeah. And what I can say is, when you are being asked what is your experience in maybe a certain role, you will be asked number of years. This is how I put it. Is the number of times that you have failed and woke up and you've done it better, on number of times that you have solved that particular problem over and over again. So I leave it to you that. Thank you. This is my end of my presentation. I hope it has helped you. I'm just opening. We started a bit late, so we have like 20 more minutes to pick questions, and maybe if there is somewhere we have not understood anything, we can clarify on that. Yeah, back to you, Chris. Yeah, or Kevenji Muriongi. Thank you all.
Everyone, thank you, Ilavu. So I have some few questions that
Yeah.
like you need to point out. So you have talked about the tools, Trello, Jira. So are these tools can they work for the waterfall project management approach, or are they for the agile approach? And then I would like you maybe to talk a little bit about the what
Chris,
yeah.
Chris,
Hello.
I can't be able to hear you properly.
Okay, am I clear now?
Yes, you are clear now.
Okay, so I was asking now on the tools that you have talked about, the Trello, Jira, and those kind of tools. So are they only applied in agile project management or the waterfall approach? Now that you said waterfall is mostly used for the community projects,
Yeah.
then I would also love if you point out about the waterfall approach. Now I have seen a few tutorials on agile. I know a little bit about that, but now I didn't know about the waterfall. Now how is the waterfall project management managed, and the approach for that? So, and then the next question is on the risk management plan. So, how do one develop that in terms of project management? Thank you.
I'll start with your second question. Agile project management and waterfall project management. What we just discussed right now is the flow of the waterfall project management. You might find it being implemented differently. What I said at the beginning of the project of this discussion is that it doesn't matter which project, what project you're implementing. The methodology is always depending on what methodology you take. The uh, the process what we have discussed now is the same thing that you're going to implement in other methodologies. The only thing that changes is the approach. Okay. For example, in agile project management, that happens mostly. You find it in the IT world. Maybe people doing a lot of software development, yeah, and you even happen to hear them giving it another name, maybe Scrum project management, yeah. The reason being is that I said for them, software is very difficult to start from, for example, from the top to the bottom to the end. Yeah? In this case, for them, they start from anywhere, depending on what the client specifications or the product managers requirements are at that particular moment. Maybe for them, let's give it an example with M-Pesa, for example. Maybe, for example, the time they were developing, they decided maybe you want to work on the SSD part. How are text going to, how do you dial these and get to that? Those, the number, the names and the steps that you find applying in your M-Pesa. There is someone who worked on that, but the end goal was to make sure that the customer or anyone can be able to transact money with M-Pesa. There's someone else who worked on the payment part to link your M-Pesa to your account, yeah? Someone else. So it's very, you cannot point out, you cannot pinpoint that this is where you're supposed to. It creates some sort of flexibility. You can start from anywhere, but the end goal is one, if I've answered your question correctly. In terms of tracking tools, tying up to your second question, is that tracking tools are always the same. You'll find it the same. They're always the same. The best, now, if I can say the ones that I've used and I find them very useful for me is Jira, for example. If I'm working on a project on IT, or for example, software development, definitely in my head I know, or that particular organization maybe will be applying either Prince2 or PMI, or those two kind of approaches, project approaches, or even others will go to the side of maybe to narrow it down, break it down to agile project management. And is if you get oriented so much with those methodologies, it's be able for you to click as with a snap of a finger, you can switch quickly. Yeah. So tracking tools are all the same. The Jira is good because it has the dashboards and the Kanban dashboards. Yeah. So those are mixed in together. They're incorporated in one software, and you're able to create stories. You're able to create issues, and even track bugs and assign those tasks, all the tasks to the project team. And in the aspect, for example, of software development process life cycle is very different and very interesting because it's very flexible, and it works on a time on a life cycle of what you call a Scrum. It has sprints. They work on sprints scheduled at a max of 2 weeks. So in that time frame, they normally work on a very specific task. If it is not met in that particular time, it is pushed to the next sprint. Okay, and the cycle goes again and again. So it's like a circle. Yeah. And on the risk management plan, the risk management plan has a number of things. You need to identify the risk. So when you're doing a risk assessment or identifying what the risk are, what are the risks. So first you start with identifying what is the risk. Okay. And even risk management in this agile project setup or software development setup life cycle, they differ a little bit, but the process is the same. The basic one, or the common one, is to identify the risk first. You analyze and you prioritize the risk, and you treat the risk and monitor the risk. In the agile side, you will find a place whereby it moves again to you identify the risk, you analyze the risk, then when you're prioritizing the risk, it breaks again. It moves to, it is taken back to the developing to be redesigned. So once it has finished to be redesigned, it is redeveloped again. After redevelopment, it is put into testing. After being put into test, it is brought down now again to the release part. Yeah, so it released again, and it starts again the process, and then it's brought back to the chain, the flow. For instance, it's like a highway. Then it breaks a little bit, then joins again, and then joins ahead. So once it exits, then the problem is solved. It gets back to the highway, and the highway is the project life cycle, all the steps. If I have answered your questions, Chris.
Yes, well answered.
Yes, Chris, maybe I can add on the second question that you asked. In terms of agile and waterfall, so maybe something that I like to point out is when you talk about agile mostly came about, and you will hear so many people talk about it in terms of IT, but maybe there is clear advantages of waterfall and there is clear advantages of agile. And something that you will hear mostly is that so many people talk about agile in a very superior way, to the point that you may end up being carried away and think every project will apply agile methodology. Number one, agile will really work very well in a software environment or in a design environment, in an R&D environment. But waterfall will work very well in a hardware or in a manufacturing kind of an environment. Why would I say that confidently? Because you realize, and I'll point this out clearly to maybe what Newton Kimathi will be doing. When Kimathi is doing the design, and now we've gone to the next phase, the one thing here is Kimathi will need to finalize on the design. The design is reviewed with Philemon and all that other guys, and then finally we'll do the purchase. Now, this is what so many people will not mention, especially when you go to these 5 minutes videos where you are being told about project management and agile. When at that part you are doing procurement, if you do the wrong procurement, it means there is no going back. You will carry your mistakes to the next phase. And now the worst is when now that structure is mounted and everything is right there, there is no going back. There is no rebooting the server. And that's why at the whole entire talk that Hilary has been talking, he has been addressing the waterfall method, because most of the engineering project, and especially big project, they will at some point run with waterfall, but in them, especially in the subsections, you will find some form of agile kind of workings, but that agile will not actually take over the whole project. Another way to look at it is agile really works well in a short time kind of projects. If you want to do something that is for the testing purposes, agile works very well. And if you want to build a prototype, agile works very well. But if you want to build something that will be used for the next 10, 20 years, then sorry for that, then you will have to go with the waterfall methodology, or rather waterfall approach. So that is why you really need to get the concepts right. You really need to get what is this waterfall and why is it important. But so many people don't talk about it. It's only that the agile has a hype, and it's applicable in so many ways. But still, with what this project is all about, there will be some aspects of agile, but most of it, the overall kind of the deal the overall kind of the project will be delivered through waterfall. Back to you, Chris.
Ezra, thank you for that. Maybe anyone who has a question can unmute and go to ask his or her question.
Thank you, Kidenji, for clarifying that. And what I tell you is just understand the principles that of project management. Just if you get to understand the principles and understanding what methodology you're choosing, it will be very easier for you to implement the project that you are working in. So now I can see you're incorporating both. You're building some softwares as well, and also doing some hardware things. So you'll find yourself incorporating both. So you'll juggle now, have to juggle in between. But if you're able to understand or differentiate those two, it will be able for the team that will be working on the software, they will completely be using agile project. Why? Because they actually don't know what the outcome is. And I know just somewhere within the testing part, they might find it's not working well. They go back to redesigning it and that kind of things. So I kind of feel like we are now very vast, or have an understanding on what project management is and how to conduct an effective project management, putting into consideration the three constraints of project management, that is the time, the scope, and the budget. I'm also hoping that we are able to understand clearly why we need to do thorough planning or thorough incorporation of defining our goals or our scopes, right? So I believe that is going to help you a lot in your project, and I hope that will be all, or for me, that's all. And I say that it has been nice to take you through the project management processes and manage in this time. Thank you. Chris, okay. Any other question? I don't want to feel like I don't want to lock anyone out who feels that has a question and wants to ask. Please. Chris.
Yeah, seeing the topic was well understood. I also appreciate the way you have really gone to details of the topic. So I also was being much confused with the YouTube projects on this. We really appreciate your time, Israeli, sparing this time and sharing
Sorry,
this.
Chris, I can't hear you. You are very far.
Okay, sorry for that. I was saying we really appreciate how detailed your presentation was. Most of us, like me personally, was really confused about this. After looking at few YouTube tutorials, they are not that detailed. So I would also request maybe you would love to share the PowerPoint with us and we share with the members. that would really be helpful for us as a team. But thank you very much for sparing your time and having this evening with us and giving us the training. I also hope that the members also learned as I did. So thank you very much for that. Maybe to Dr. Mujumbi, anyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris and Hilary. Before maybe I do my closing remark, I love to, because I can see we are very few, and basically about 3 or 4 of us have spoken. I'd like to give this chance to one of the engineer at the back end here. I know he's working a lot. He's been doing a lot of project, and he joined in and he has been here with us. Patrick Yagon, are you there with us?
Jambo.
Salama
Mko
sana.
salama wote?
Yes.
Nimeweka kwa speaker. That was a very good class. That we appreciate kabisa. Na wacha tung'ang'ane hivyo tu polepole. Soon we should come back to maybe now the real application of each detail. Then I think I need to go back and study the agile structure very well. In fact, in one of my projects, I was talking about agile and how it affects the engineer of the future. Hello?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear.
Yagon, we can hear you loud and clear.
Oh. I was saying, in one of my books, I was talking about the engineering and the future and how the engineer of the future will have to deal with now the integration of agile project management, agile design, and all that. So I think it was good that we touched about it. I appreciate. Thank you so much, everyone.
Shukran, Yagon. So maybe for those who don't know who Yagon is, I think he graduated while I was in second year. No, I think he joined 5th year while I was joining second year or something like that. So I think for the students who are here, you can still see even guys who have graduated and they are out there, they are still longing to learn, and they are learning as they are still out there. Maybe the other person I like to hear too is Chaltu Mata, who is branding lead for the IEEE Young Professionals, and also she holds a very key role in IEEE Kenya section. Chaltu, are you there?
Hello. Yes, how are you?
We're doing good, Chaltu.
We're good?
Yeah. Oh, you want me to go ahead and speak, yes?
Yeah.
Yes, I was saying maybe you can give your feedback. We've heard from Yagon. Maybe we can hear from you because this session, majority here are students, and I feel that you sharing something, what you've learned, your feedback would really be helpful for all of us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kitinji. And Hilary, that was a really great presentation. I mean, to the point, well organized and in-depth in terms of just helping one understand what project management is really about. And I'm glad to hear there are actually students here. So it means they're having a key introduction at an early enough stage. So what I can say is, even after this, if this is something you guys are interested in, go back, do a lot of research, see what type of jobs you can get in terms of this, how you can implement it, what skills it requires, and how you can start aligning yourself. I think that's something that you're not told when you're in school, that you need to start aligning yourself also in terms of the careers that you want to do. So Hilary, thank you so much. This was a brilliant presentation, I must say. And thank you, Kitinji, also for the intro. And yeah, we look forward to having IEEE doing more impact in society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chaltu, for that. And I think just a reminder here is that you realize some of us, we always say that I'll become a manager when I grow up, especially if you are maybe in first year, second year. you start seeing engineering is kind of hard and kind of boring, and you say, I want to start managing people. And I think this is something very important, especially when you start learning it. And most of these aspects, as Hilary alluded, you cannot just learn them from one presentation, or you cannot learn them in a paper and then you say you can now manage. You need to do it in practice. And I think with this project that is at hand, I'm hoping that you guys will you learn a lot. Maybe for the next, I'll just be mentioning people, and then you can take 20 to 30 seconds, at least share your feedback, and then we will close. Jim? Jim, are you there? I always appreciate, especially when we have like 10 people, it's always nice to close the session and even take 5 minutes or even 10 minutes to give everybody who is in the session a minute or so to say a word. Jim? Okay, I think your chance is gone. We can go to Philemon. Hello, Philemon. Hello.
Hello. Nimetoka room kiasi, so the session has been nice. Actually, I thought it would be a 30-minute session, but unfortunately, it took 2 hours, which I think I've learned a lot. So thanks everyone for the sharing. Thanks to Hilary and the project leads of the Kipanda kiosk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Philemon, for that. And I think you've heard what Charles has said. We are used to this kind of brushing concepts out, where someone will just come and within 10 minutes he has talked about project management. And we decided to do it differently, to have a very in-depth discussion with questions and everything. Where if you attend that session, you will feel at least you gain something. Unlike where you will just have someone coming to talk about this is what you do, agile, blah, blah, blah. And then we call it a lecture. But by the end of the day, it is very diluted. But I think this one we needed to have it very deep so that and have it from a professional and not an ordinary person, so that you can see from a different point of view. Leila?
The session was very informative and I've learned a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome, Leila. And now we are hoping to see you put whatever you have learned into action. Monica? Monica, I can't hear you, but I can see you've unmuted your mic. I can't hear you, Monica. Hello? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Maybe you can type in your response on chat. Monica, we can go to Newton. Newton?
Okay, thank you, Gidinji. I would like to thank everyone, especially Hilary Musri, and for sharing the knowledge on project management. And I look forward to putting into practice what I've learned in the Smart Kiosk project. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Newton. We'll go back to Jim. Jim, are you there? Okay, seems you're not there. Monica, have you fixed your mic?
Kivinji.
Okay. Yes, you're gone.
Just a practical experience of not using a proper project planning session.
Perfect. I really love that. Kindly proceed.
We had a project here in the company I'm working in. And I can tell you the variation we had was 70% extra of the cost which had been initiated. So for every engineer out there, you should be very keen when you are starting a project. You should be able to see up to the end and do all the proper analysis and preparation. Otherwise, you may be the one who bear all the burden of that variation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Egon, for that. And I think in some case, whenever you, especially when you talk to engineers about these kind of concepts, you realize so many people are not even interested, especially students. They are not even interested into hearing about project management. But I'm very sure if we were talking about the fancy stuff here like AI, and we are showcasing just the normal stuff that everybody can learn on the net, the class will be full with 50, 60 people. But I think that is the kind of problem that you realize most of us faced. Even at the time we were in school, we never found someone to really open our eyes and for us even to open our hearts to listen. And I think for you, even finding time to be here with us and share these, it's really helpful. So I think for me, what I'll just do is give Hillary special thanks from IEEE Young Professionals, IEEE Kenya section, and lastly, on behalf of IEEE Moi University Student Branch. And say thank you very much, Hillary, for even allowing to share your knowledge. I think 2 hours, it's not really a joke. And
Yes.
most students here are used to even lectures of 30, 40 minutes. So, or even 2 hours, it's where there is quite a lot of stuff happening. And I think for those ones who have stick to the session till the end, thank you very much even for that. It's always nice when a speaker comes and he has at least a good quorum till the end. It makes him feel that whatever he was sharing is very important, and that's why I had to make sure at least all of us shares their feedback with the speaker right away. Even if it will take us 10 minutes like it has done, I felt it's really important. So thank you very much, everyone. And I hope this one will really give us and the team, Chris, a different view of things. And we will still have these sessions. We are going to have a different sessions, most likely after every 2 weeks at most. Or if it goes beyond 2 weeks, it will be 3 weeks. Just to make sure we are doing this more often, so that I know for me where I'm seated, I have a glimpse of what will happen. But for you, it's not only about learning, but remember you have a project, and there is a project that needs to be submitted. That needs to be done in the next 6 months. And for that reason, there is always a reason to keep learning and to keep informed about why these concepts are very important. So that's all from my end. And maybe I don't know if I'll bounce it back to Chris, just to say a prayer if there is a need, or just to close the session. Back to you, Chris. You have the powers now to click the red button, and all of us are back into our normal lives.
Okay, that was a good consideration of our prayer. Maybe I'll pray, then we leave at our own place. Yeah. So, Heavenly Father, thank you for this session. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for guiding us. Father, give part to each one of us, Jesus. Watch over us, guide us. Father, you do that shortly. Give you a blessed pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining. We look forward to seeing you all in the next sessions.
Asanteni sana. Have a good evening, everyone.
Be blessed, Hilary, and